Hello, my name is Jessica, and I'm a 30-year-old woman. I've been reflecting on something that happened not too long ago, a chapter in my life that left me grappling with unresolved emotions, particularly around my husband, Tyler, and his family. Though a few months have passed since this all unfolded, I still find myself processing the aftermath. I think sharing this story might help me make sense of it all and continue moving forward. To understand where I'm coming from, let me take you back a few years, 3, to be exact. This was when I made the life-changing decision to marry Tyler, the man I had been in a relationship with for over 3 years. We had met through mutual friends, and our connection was immediate. Tyler was always the life of the party, fun, charismatic, and incredibly loving. He came from a wealthy family, and with a lucrative job, he had the means to spoil me in ways that sometimes left me feeling both grateful and uncomfortable. Tyler's generosity was something I wasn't used to. I had come from a modest background, and while I appreciated his gestures, I often felt uneasy. For instance, when I graduated college, Tyler surprised me with a brand new laptop. I was stunned by the gift, but there was always this lingering sense that my contributions to the relationship weren't on the same scale as his. "Tyler, I can't keep up with this," I'd tell him. "I'm still just a college student. Let me at least help with some of the bills or smaller expenses." Tyler would always brush off my concerns. "It's fine, Jessica. This is how we do things. You don't need to worry. You're important to me, and that's all that matters." Still, I wanted to give back in my own way. When I landed my first real job after graduation, I was thrilled, not just for the opportunity, but because I finally felt like I could contribute in a way that matched Tyler's generosity. Over time, we began to share expenses more equally, and I felt better about the arrangement. We even started talking about moving in together. "Why don't you just move in with me?" Tyler suggested one evening. "I inherited this house from my grandpa, so no worries about rent. We can split everything else to make it fair." I had my reservations. After all, the idea of living in a house that wasn't really mine felt strange, but Tyler reassured me that it wasn't about control. He just wanted to take care of me, and everything would be fine. So, I agreed, and our lives began to blend in ways I hadn't imagined before. It wasn't until I had the chance to meet Tyler's family that things began to shift. Tyler's parents and sister lived quite far away, and when they came into town, Tyler had work commitments and couldn't join us. I was left to host them on my own. Before they arrived, Tyler gave me a heads up. "My family can be a bit judgmental, but don't let it get to you," he'd said, though he didn't elaborate further.
I decided to take the high road and hoped for the best.
But the reality of meeting his family was far from what I had imagined. Instead of a warm greeting, I was met with cold stares and an undercurrent of tension. It quickly became clear that his family didn't approve of me, but I had no idea how deep their judgment ran until the conversation took a strange turn. "So, you're the one Tyler has been seeing?" his mother, Martha, asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "I didn't expect you to be living in this house. Do you even pay rent?" I was taken aback but tried to stay composed. "No, Martha, I don't pay rent. The house is fully paid for,
and Tyler and I split the other expenses evenly."
Martha wasn't having it. She waved her hand dismissively. "Just because the house is paid off doesn't mean you should be mooching off him. This is his house, not yours, and you'd better remember that." The words stung, but I held my ground. Unfortunately, it wasn't just Martha. His sister, Teresa, barely spoke to me the entire time. When I tried to engage her in conversation, asking about her life, she seemed more interested in glaring at me than talking. Eventually, she mentioned her husband, some wealthy billionaire, and that was the extent of her conversation. As the visit wore on, Tyler barely intervened. He seemed to side with his family, and I felt increasingly isolated. His parents and sister criticized everything they could, including my spending habits. They saw the makeup I used as frivolous, something I couldn't afford in their eyes, and my modest purchases were a point of contention. They didn't know about my small business at the time, so they assumed I was financially dependent on Tyler. It was all a big misunderstanding, but there was no way to explain it in a way that made them see my side. Things got worse when Tyler began making comments that seemed to throw me under the bus. "You know, Jessica was a struggling student when we met," he would say. "She couldn't afford a lot of things, and I ended up covering for her a lot." Those words hurt. It wasn't entirely true, and it made me feel like he was downplaying my efforts to become independent. I reminded him that, over time, we had adjusted our arrangement to share expenses more evenly, and I had never been financially irresponsible, but the damage had been done. After they left, I tried to talk to Tyler about how I felt, but he shrugged it off. "You're overthinking it, Jessica. They didn't mean anything by it, you're just being sensitive." Despite the tension, Tyler and I got engaged 5 months later. In that moment, I was happy, but the doubts and fears from his family's visit lingered. We decided to have an engagement party, and we agreed to split the expenses. I even went out of my way to cover the cost of plane tickets for my family to attend. It was a big deal for me, and I wanted to make sure everything was perfect. But as the party unfolded, it felt like Tyler's family was finding new ways to criticize me. "You really splurged on this, didn't you?" Martha muttered. "You're draining Tyler's account before you're even married. At this rate, you'll be lucky to afford a backyard wedding." Her words were sharp, and they stung all over again. I couldn't just let them slide this time. "Martha, we agreed on the budget for the party," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Tyler and I both contributed, and I even paid for my family's plane tickets. It was his idea to invite everyone." But the accusations didn't stop. Teresa joined in, suggesting I was manipulating Tyler into spending more than he should. I felt like my engagement party was falling apart before my eyes. Tyler seemed completely unaware of the tension and continued to joke around with his relatives, as though everything was normal. I excused myself from the group and stepped outside, needing to get away from it all. But as I stood on the venue's lawn, I overheard Teresa and her husband, Justin, laughing. They were laughing about me, mocking me and the situation, as though I was the joke of the evening. By the time the night ended, I felt like an outsider in my own celebration. Tyler's family had made it clear how they viewed me, and nothing I did seemed to change their minds. Tyler, in his obliviousness, continued to defend them, saying I was overreacting, but deep down, I felt that their judgment was eating away at me, and I didn't know how much longer I could take it. I had made it clear before that the costs for our wedding were covered by my mother, yet it didn't stop Martha and Gabriel from using the event as another opportunity to criticize my spending habits. At the reception, they couldn't contain their disdain, accusing me of financially exploiting their son.
Despite their harsh words,
I chose to remain silent, unwilling to let their negativity ruin what was meant to be one of the happiest days of our lives. The day passed without incident, but their words lingered in the back of my mind, casting a shadow over what should have been a celebration. A few months later, Tyler received a significant promotion at work. He was thrilled, and so was I. This was a major achievement for him. Eager to mark the occasion, I wanted to throw a grand family dinner to celebrate his success. I was excited for him and decided to take on the responsibility of covering all the expenses myself. This was my way of showing him how proud I was and how much I cared for him. "Tyler, I want this dinner to be something extraordinary. I'm so proud of you, and I want to make sure this milestone is celebrated the right way," I told him, my voice filled with enthusiasm. Tyler was deeply appreciative of the gesture, and I took the opportunity to share with him that my business was growing. On top of that, I had recently accessed a trust fund from my paternal grandfather, which gave me the financial stability to pull off this dinner. I meticulously planned the event, making sure everything was perfect. I wanted it to be a night Tyler would never forget, one where he could bask in the joy of his hard-earned success. But when his family arrived, it was clear that they weren't on the same page. Despite the positive feedback from the other guests, his family remained visibly unhappy. They had reservations about the extravagance of the dinner, and their disapproval was palpable. During the speeches, Martha stood up and, with an almost theatrical flair, addressed the crowd. Her voice rang out as she began. "I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate my son. He's hardworking, generous, and truly deserving of this promotion. However, it's a shame that good fortune didn't extend to his choice of a partner. It's unfortunate that, of all people, he ended up with what some might call a gold digger."
her words stung like a slap to the face.
But she wasn't done. "It's become painfully obvious that his wife has quite the taste for luxury. From the engagement party to tonight's dinner, it seems she's been draining his bank accounts." I felt the weight of her accusations pressing down on me, but I refused to let her see me crumble. Martha wasn't finished, though. She turned her attention to the prenuptial agreement we'd signed, as if to emphasize her point. "Thank goodness we had Jessica sign a prenuptial agreement before the wedding. At least some of his assets are protected," she said with a sigh, as though relieved by the fact that Tyler had taken such precautions. Tyler, perhaps sensing the tension, chimed in. agreeing with his mother. I can't even afford to spend money on myself anymore, he lamented, his voice carrying an air of frustration. Marrying Jessica was a mistake. It's worse than I thought. I didn't realize how much I'd have to support her. His words hit me like a punch to the stomach. In a daze, I finally found my voice and asked, "Do you really think I'm a gold digger?" Tyler's response was sharp and cold. "Your lifestyle is damaging to my bank account." I couldn't just stand there and let this false narrative continue. I had to defend myself. "If you really believe I'm a gold digger, let me show you my bank balance," I retorted, my tone resolute. I pulled out my phone and displayed my account, which was filled with the result of my own hard work and financial independence. The room fell silent in disbelief as everyone realized that my financial stability didn't rely on Tyler in the way they had assumed. But Martha wasn't satisfied. "Did you steal my son's money?" she asked, her voice dripping with suspicion. Tyler, looking equally confused, added, "She must have taken it from you." I took a deep breath, refusing to let their ignorance get the best of me. "I don't need to steal money from your son," I said, my voice steady. "This is all from my own efforts. I accessed a trust fund from my grandfather, and I had plans to use it to surprise Tyler with a bigger house. But given the circumstances, that seems unlikely now." Despite my attempts to explain, Tyler, still seemingly oblivious to the tension around us, offered a misguided solution. "We can still buy the house," he said. "It'll be a wonderful gift." I shook my head, my frustration boiling over. "No," I said firmly, "this is not happening. Your family has insulted me for far too long, and you've never once stood up for me. Instead, you've let these misconceptions spread without saying a word. I can't live like this anymore." I had previously clarified that those expenses were covered by my mother. The ceremony itself unfolded without a hitch, but at the reception, Martha and Gabriel did not miss any opportunity to criticize my spending habits, accusing me of financially exploiting their son.
Despite their harsh words,
I chose to remain silent to avoid any conflict that might ruin our special day. A few months later, Tyler celebrated a significant promotion at work, and he was eager to mark the occasion with a grand family dinner. I was excited for him and decided to make the event even more special by covering all the expenses myself. "Tyler, I want this dinner to be something extraordinary. I'm so proud of you, and I want to celebrate your success," I told him enthusiastically. Tyler appreciated my gesture, and I shared with him that my business was flourishing. I had a stable income from my job and had recently accessed a trust fund from my paternal grandfather. I meticulously planned the whole event to ensure everything was perfect for the celebration. However, when his family arrived, they were visibly unhappy with the arrangements. Despite receiving positive feedback from other guests, it soon became apparent that they had reservations about the lavishness of the celebration. During the speeches, Martha took the opportunity to stand up. Her voice carried across the room as she began. "I want to thank everyone for gathering here to celebrate my son. He's incredibly hardworking and generous and truly deserving of this promotion. Unfortunately, it seems his good fortune did not extend to his choice of a partner. It's unfortunate that, of all people, he found himself tied to what some might call a gold digger. I only wish he had seen the true nature of his wife earlier. Then he wouldn't have to work so hard to support her lavish lifestyle," she continued, her tone tinged with regret. "It's now painfully obvious to everyone here that his wife has been quite extravagant. From the engagement party to tonight's dinner, it seems she has nearly drained his accounts." Feeling the sting of her words, I took a deep breath and steeled myself. Martha added, "Thank goodness we had Jessica sign a prenuptial agreement before the wedding. At least some of his assets are protected." She sighed, seemingly relieved, expressing that it was a good thing her son had married someone who could at least maintain the image of a trophy wife. Tyler chimed in, agreeing with his mother. "I can't even afford to spend money on myself anymore. There's nothing left." He lamented that marrying me was a mistake, comparing my behavior unfavorably to what he imagined another's response might be in a similar situation. In shock and frustration at the unfolding scene, I finally spoke up. "Do you really think I'm a gold digger?" Tyler's response was cutting. "Your lifestyle is quite damaging to my bank account." Feeling hurt yet determined to clarify the misconceptions, I decided to confront the accusation directly. "Since I'm such a gold digger to you all, let me just show you my bank balance. Perhaps that will clear things up," I declared, revealing my financial independence to everyone present. The room fell into disbelief. Amidst the heated accusations, Martha pointedly accused, "Did you steal my son's money?" To which Tyler added suspiciously, "She must have taken it from you." Frustrated yet calm, I responded, "I don't need to steal money from your son. This is all from my efforts. Besides, I recently accessed a trust fund left by my grandfather. I had plans to use it to buy a bigger house and surprise Tyler, but given the current circumstances, that seems unlikely now." Despite my attempt to clarify the situation, Tyler, seemingly ignoring the tension, suggested, "We can still buy the house. It'll be a wonderful gift." However, I was firm in my resolve, expressing my refusal to accept such a gift under the current conditions. "This is not happening. Your family has insulted me for too long, and you've never once stood up for me. Instead, you've let these misconceptions about how I'm supposedly using your money spread," I asserted, my frustration evident. Tyler tried to downplay the situation, claiming I was overreacting, but I stood my ground. "No, I am not overreacting. Everyone here knows what your family has been calling me. They were here when you allowed them to insult me during our engagement party." Feeling the cumulative burden of disrespect and humiliation over the years, I reached a breaking point. I could no longer tolerate the toxic environment and sternly told Tyler, "I want a divorce." As he attempted to plead and explain, my mom intervened, advising him to remain silent. "You never defended my daughter all these years. It's time she ends this toxic relationship for good," she declared firmly. We left the party, leaving behind a crowd of shocked attendees whispering among themselves. Despite the dramatic revelation in front of Tyler's extended family, friends, and colleagues, I no longer cared. I was resolute in my decision to leave him and move on from the relationship. My mom's support was unwavering as we exited, marking the end of a painful chapter in my life. After the tumultuous confrontation, I went straight to our shared home, gathered my belongings, and while Tyler persistently tried to reach me, I muted my phone and went to stay with my mother for solace. The next day, I reached out to my cousin, who was a lawyer, to begin drafting the divorce papers. With a prenuptial agreement already in place, the process promised to be straightforward, sparing me the need to share any of my now substantial financial assets with Tyler. However, the situation escalated when Tyler and his family appeared at my mother's doorstep, demanding a conversation. My mother stood firm, instructing them to leave. Meanwhile, Tyler continued his attempts to contact me, his messages oscillating between tearful apologies and unsettling threats. I saved all these communications, preparing to file for a restraining order if necessary. Amid this emotional chaos, my mother's unwavering support gave me strength. Tyler even attempted to confront me at my office, but having informed security in advance, they promptly escorted him out. It was then that I decided to leave my well-paying job.
My thriving business meant I no longer needed the position.
And my aspirations were no longer about accumulating wealth but seeking a peaceful, dignified life. Thus, I handed in my resignation that very day and began to move forward. Only a week after I had the divorce papers served to Tyler at his workplace, he appeared at my old office, only to find that I had already resigned. My former colleagues reported his continued attempts to send flowers and gifts to my mother's house, which we consistently returned. The ongoing harassment led me to consider relocating. With my mother's encouragement, I found an ideal house in the next state, providing a sanctuary away from my ex. Currently, as I await the finalization of the divorce paperwork, the judge has already facilitated a smooth proceeding thanks to the solid prenuptial agreement. During the 5 months of our separation, I took the time to collect myself and prepare for a new chapter in my life. Free from turmoil and filled with renewed hope, I quickly settled into my new home, taking the significant step of changing my number to avoid the incessant barrage of messages from Tyler and his family. I heard through the grapevine that Tyler's life was unraveling. He blamed his parents for the downfall of our marriage, and professionally, he faced a significant setback. His colleagues began to distance themselves, and his seniors were displeased with the negative publicity in their close-knit community. His parents didn't help matters, spreading infidelity rumors, but thankfully, these baseless accusations failed to gain any traction. In contrast to Tyler's downward spiral, my life began to flourish. I focused on growing my business and relishing my newfound freedom. I started going out more and even dipped my toes back into the dating scene. Tyler's past insecurities made me wary of committing too quickly, but I remained hopeful that, in time, I would heal and find someone who truly values and cherishes me. While Tyler's actions caused me considerable pain, The strength I gained from overcoming those challenges has propelled me into a brighter future full of possibilities and self-discovery. I look forward to what lies ahead, confident in my resilience and more aware of what I seek in relationships and life.